The flood story. Here is the alternative view analysis applying the DBFEP framework. If a global flood occurred less than 10,000 years ago, the DBFEP requires us to first define the claim precisely before evaluating it, and the claim would be this: a catastrophic global water event of sufficient depth and velocity to deposit marine fossils across every continental landmass occurred within the last 10,000 years, and the geological, biological, and archaeological record should contain specific, identifiable, and verifiable signatures of that event. So what would we look for, and what would we find? First, we would expect to find a globally continuous sedimentary layer deposited rapidly rather than slowly, and interestingly, the geological record does contain what is called the Cretaceous chalk layer, a massive marine deposit found on virtually every continent, including in the middle of North America, across Europe, in Australia, and throughout the Middle East, which mainstream geology attributes to a shallow sea over millions of years, but which a catastrophic flood model would interpret as rapid hydraulic deposition of marine organisms across continental surfaces. Second, we would expect to find marine fossils at high elevations far from any ocean, and we do find exactly that, with marine shell fossils discovered in the Himalayas, the Andes, the Alps, and the Rocky Mountains, which mainstream geology explains through tectonic uplift over millions of years, but which the flood model would explain as deposition during a period of massive continental inundation, followed by rapid tectonic rebound. Third, we would expect to find evidence of a massive simultaneous die-off of large animals across multiple continents at roughly the same time period, and the Pleistocene megafauna extinction event shows exactly that pattern, with woolly mammoths, mastodons, giant sloths, saber-toothed cats, and dozens of other large species disappearing from the fossil record within a relatively narrow time frame that some researchers place between 10,000 and 13,000 years ago, with frozen mammoths found in Siberia containing undigested vegetation in their stomachs, suggesting catastrophic and rapid burial rather than gradual environmental change. Fourth, we would expect to find flood narratives in the cultural memory of civilizations on every continent with no contact with each other, and the anthropological record contains over 200 independent flood narratives from Mesopotamia, China, India, the Americas, Africa, Australia, and the Pacific Islands, all describing a catastrophic water event that destroyed a previous civilization and from which only a small group of survivors escaped, which the DBFEP flags as a significant convergence of independent cultural evidence that the mainstream historical inference model has never fully explained away. Fifth, we would expect to find evidence of rapid rather than slow canyon and geological feature formation, and the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens produced a canyon 1/40th the scale of the Grand Canyon in a matter of hours through catastrophic water and debris flow, providing a direct observable analogy for how large-scale geological features could form rapidly under catastrophic hydraulic conditions rather than requiring millions of years of slow erosion. The DBFEP verdict on this alternative model is not that it is proven, because intellectual honesty requires that we apply the same mechanism sufficiency standard to all competing explanations equally, but it scores significantly higher than it is typically credited in mainstream discourse because it generates specific testable predictions, several of which match observable evidence. It is supported by independent cultural convergence across civilizations with no contact. It has a documented small-scale modern analogy in volcanic geology, and the mainstream slow-process explanation for marine fossils on mountaintops and continental interiors carries its own substantial assumption burden that is rarely subjected to the same critical scrutiny that catastrophic flood models receive, which is itself a DQA fairness violation that the DBFEP requires be corrected in any honest evaluation of the competing claims.